Morning. Hello, Resham Ahdan. It's so good to have you here with Connecting Conversations. Uh, just introduce a little bit about yourself and what you do. We're so happy to have you here on our platform today.
Hi, Carla. Thank you for having me. Really excited to be on your platform and love the work you're doing. Yeah, so I'm Resham Ahdan. So I currently work in the media industry as a transformation and performance manager for Sky Media. Before Sky, I used to work at the BBC and the Wall Street Journal. So people are like, what does transformation manager do? So I basically am involved with like any project that involves transformation. So whether it's people and culture, to projects about sort of process improvement. So anything to improve the way we work, I just sort of get involved with. So it's something I'm really passionate about. And it's just something that I think all companies are really focusing on right now as well.
Yeah, they really are. And how did you get into kind of this line of work? It sounds like you've been in some incredible places already. I'm
Yeah.
sure that was just the beginning and the journey just continues to climb higher. How did you get onto the journey to start off with?
So being from a South Asian background, it was always, drilled into me, lawyer, accountant, doctor type stuff. So my parents really pushed me to the lawyer route, and I was never really very academic. So I was always the kid at school that was really quiet and shy. I wasn't like the A grade student. So I think when I went through the whole university process, I was pretty burnt out. So I thought, what could I do next? When I left university, still didn't know what I wanted to do. So I started to, when you can temp for agencies, like a day here and a day
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
And what I realized was what was more important to me was workplace culture. So when I'd sort of do like a week in one company, you got to see how people were treated, how managers spoke to their colleagues. And sometimes I would get offered a job and I would actually say no to it because I didn't actually like the way the culture was.
Yeah.
So it took me a while to actually get my foot into like the corporate world, and I was temping after university for like 2 years. I didn't connect with a culture that I thought I could see myself here.
Yeah.
And then one day a lady at the agency said to me, Resh, you've been temping for quite a while. Do you not want a permanent job? And I said, of course I do. I'm really fussy about the culture. So she said, look, there's a job, in Chiswick. It's for a company called Teletext. Why don't you try it? They've got a great job. So I basically started off my career as a grad. I went to Teletext holidays. I don't know if you remember them back in the day.
Yeah, I do.
So that was the travel industry. It was lovely. The people were great. And basically what happened was I was brought in because I love organizing events. I'm sort of like, the one that organizes the weddings and the Christmas events in the family. So I was like, yeah, I can do events. I went in there to organize the Teletext 10-year party. And I realized that they didn't really need this role because I was a bit like, I feel a bit wasted. I've got a lot of time on my hands and I'm not someone that's just going to sit there, put my feet up. So it was a very small company and I built a rapport with all the different, senior leadership.
Yeah.
And one day I just sort of went up to one of the leaders and I said, you know what? I mean, looking back at it, I don't even know how I did this. I just said, you know what? I don't feel like you actually need this headcount in this position. I feel like you need this headcount in that team. Because I was getting bored, I would turn around and I would just say to someone, what do you do? And then I would start to learn what they were doing in my spare time because I was so bored. And there was no flexible working in those. So, so you'd have to clock off at 5:30. So I used to sort of fill my time with learning what people did. So I found out a guy was leaving. And then I basically said to the MD, like, so-and-so's leaving. I've been learning their job. Like, you don't need a headcount here. You need it there. So why don't you just save a headcount there, move me there? And they were just like, love that. Absolutely. And they moved me from one team to another.
Amazing.
And from there, I just progressed. I started to train people on how to do the job. I was the go-to person in the team. When there was a management position, I sort of went for it. So I progressed very quickly in my career. I then got made redundant from Teletext, and then I went to the Wall Street Journal. I didn't know anything about digital. It was all about digital. But they just sort of said to me, we just liked the way you were in the interview. So looking back, I think I was just really good at connecting with people and understanding culture. And then my role just progressed into different companies. I left Wall Street Journal because I became a mum and it was really far. And I thought, where can I go where it's a bit more local to me? So I'm in West London. BBC was there. I had a lot of friends there. So then I just sort of progressed into the BBC. And what I realized at the BBC was they were really amazing because they basically looked at me and were like, you know, you're really overqualified for the job you've come in for, because they could see the way I performed. And I was like, yeah, I know, but I just needed a job that was near the kids, you know. And I was really, really fortunate at all my companies that I had leaders around me that noticed my talent,
Yeah.
because I was very quiet. I wasn't going to be my own cheerleader. And they said, we need to keep you and promote you. And so
Mm,
I was very fortunate in my career journey that I had leaders that recognized my talent and
yeah.
also helped me thrive. And yeah, and then I've just given that back same way to people that we'll talk about mentoring later, but I think I'm very fortunate that I've had a lot of support, whereas not
Yeah.
everyone has had that same experience. But yeah, so now I'm here at Sky Media and I'm just doing lots of work and transformation. I think my experience at other companies has really helped with everything about culture and transformation. So yeah.
That's incredible. I mean, what a spectrum of amazing opportunities and, as you said, just exposures to different cultures. And I think the key element that sounds consistent is that your love and drive to understand people and the environments they create in the workplace.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
I really appreciated you mentioned, and quite proudly, and I love that you're from a South Asian background, and yet, regardless of different stages that you've been through, like you said, you became a mum. Things that women navigate, and we're in the month of acknowledging, International Women's Day, which has been incredible. It sounds like you are literally one of those ultimate goals, literally doing it all in leadership, going, being driven just by your passions and still kind of having it all, including your family. It's amazing to hear that you said that people recognized your talents and you were so kind of pushed and encouraged along the way. Tell us, did you experience any kind of D&I challenges at all, especially when you're encountering these more senior roles, yourself, or even acknowledging in other people that you were working with, or seeing, kind of you get a front row seat to other people's experiences and the kind of role that you played in your previous, organizations? What kind of things were you encountering at the time with regards to diversity and inclusion issues?
Mm. Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think as I was progressing into my different roles and careers and companies, um, the people promoting me did a great job, but I found the challenges were really outside of the work environment. So, for example, when you'd go out for a drink with your work colleagues,
Mm,
and I used to call it the 9 p.m. checkout time. I felt like I had to leave by 9, because after that, people would have a few drinks and truths would come out.
yeah.
So, one thing I've talked about openly is people would say to me, you got that job because they needed an Indian, you got that job because they needed a woman, so it wasn't ever in the workplace, it was outside where,
Interesting.
after a few drinks, those comments came out. And, and the funny thing was, I was never raised to ever look at myself like, these were never my limiting beliefs that, because I'm a woman or because I'm from South Asian, I can't be something.
Yeah.
But then those little sort of comments started to sort of, when they planted a seed, like, so was I
Mm,
recruited for this or was I recruited for that? You start to question yourself and doubt yourself. So I do understand, when people say they feel like they have to work harder to prove themselves, because I think until I heard those little nuggets of, you were only hired for these reasons,
yeah.
that sort of drove me to prove even more why I'm so worthy of this role, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
I think many people do that sort of thing of, we need to hire someone because of, we need a woman, or we need, to tick some boxes. But I do think that doesn't last long, because if you do it for those reasons, the proof is in the pudding. When people get hired and they don't deliver and they don't perform, that's when it puts a really bad sort of taste in people's mouth. Like, why are we doing this? So it's got to be for the right reason. So yeah, so my challenges were never really like in the workplace. So now I've realized a lot of it is there, but people don't always say how they feel unless they've maybe had a
Mm,
few drinks. So it just actually stopped me going for drinks after work, because I just didn't want any sort of negative seeds planted in my head after. And these are also not people I work with, and I don't really want any tension in the office the next day.
yeah.
You know?
Yeah. That's so interesting, and interesting that you experience it on the outside, it's not on the inside, and such a shame to kind of have received that. I love that you spoke about there is also a balance between, for yourself, the reception or people's assumption is that you were hired as, a diversity, hire, being a woman or being from your cultural background. But there is still that element, like we do have to be able to deliver. We do
Yeah.
have to be able to still do the job. I think that's so important. And I imagine this is probably something that you deliver quite a lot in your mentorship. Would you like to share a little bit about what you do with regards to mentoring, particularly with it regards to these issues for up and comers?
Yeah, absolutely. So, um, I've noticed a lot more in the last. I mean, I've been at my company for the last 5 years, and I've noticed there's this big D&I drive. And when I
Mm.
came to the company, I really was quite surprised at the impact I'd made on people, because I didn't really realize, so some people came up to me and said, it's so amazing to see a female and also someone from, an ethnic background. And I was like, oh, well, I haven't really come here for that, but if I can inspire people, I'll happily do it. So people asked me to start doing talks with their teams, because they said, they are like, that whole phrase, you can't be what you can't see. What I noticed was a lot of the younger people that I'm mentoring, they do see that. Whereas I came from a culture where I was the only one in the room. I was either the only woman or the person from, an ethnic background. So everyone in front of me was mainly white, middle class, and male. And I do talks about, how did I perform so well when there was nobody like me in the room? So I
Yeah.
think having that talk with the people I mentor is a bit like, don't let that stop you progressing, because I know it is you can't be what you can't see, but I don't want that to stop them, because the way I see it is, I heard, friends and family say to me, Resham, are you not being used as tokenism now because you are the first? And I said, you know what, I actually disagree, because the amount of talks I've done, being the first South Asian woman in the team I'm in, it's inspired so many, people from the Black culture, South Asian, and even white females, starting out in the
Yeah.
industry. I don't just mentor people from my background. I mentor anyone that needs mentoring.
Yeah.
And I think what I sort of say to them is, don't put a ceiling in there that doesn't need to be there. And how do
Mm.
we break those barriers, and how do we take the chip off our shoulder,
Yeah.
to make sure that, I don't want anyone to go, come out of an interview and say, I didn't get that job because the panel were white and I'm not. I don't want a woman to come out of an interview and not get it and say, I didn't get it because I wasn't a man. So it's trying to make sure that when I'm mentoring people, my success is getting them to their next goal, whether it's moving sideways to another team, or whether it's moving upwards into leadership roles. And something I sort of say to them is, make sure you're getting the right feedback. So I need to make sure
Mm.
that the feedback we're being given is the right. So in some companies, a woman has the feedback that has been given is, oh, you didn't get the role because I connect with the other person better, and then the other person was a guy. So obviously that's not great feedback from a woman, because she thinks I didn't get it because I'm a woman, and I didn't go
Mm.
out playing golf, or I didn't go out drinking. That's why I didn't get the job. So
Yeah.
it's twofold. It's empowering the people I mentor to make sure, I want to make sure you've got everything you've got to
Yeah.
smash this. And if you don't, what is the feedback? Because then we need to make sure the next time we're prepared for that, so you don't get that feedback again. And that's the area to improve on. So I make sure people don't see culture as something really negative that's just going to stop them. If anything, it's an opportunity to change,
Absolutely. I really love that you say that, because I think it's one thing to acknowledge that there may be potential barriers, but the whole point of making sure that they don't paralyze us from progress is so essential. And it's encouraging to hear that someone like yourself is so active in trying to promote there's ways that we can always still be moving forward. I wanted to talk a little bit more about what are the kind of areas of well-being that you've been able to kind of amplify in those spaces. We know that you've got your podcast that really kind of is a voice piece for, navigating well-being, which is now a very big buzzword, isn't it, with regards to how to ensure that your holistic self is still preserved in a world that is rapidly changing, has got, plenty of barriers and challenges already. What kind of tools have you been kind of recommending within your roles and experience?
Yeah, sure. So my well-being journey is sort of interesting, because like you say, on the outside, people are like, wow, you're a woman, you've got kids, I'm a single mum, I've done well in terms of my leadership career. But
Mm.
sometimes inside they don't see the struggles you have, like the stress you have just dropping the kids off and getting to the office,
Yeah.
finding a car park space, like telling someone, please don't put a 9 a.m. meeting because I cannot get there. And what happened was, behind the scenes, was I used to have a lot of sort of panic attacks or anxiety attacks. I can't really pinpoint what it was. And my therapist taught me some breathing techniques. So when I started to tell people, like, they'd say, how are you so together, Ash? And I'd be like, I'm not, but these are the tools I use. I do a lot of breath work. I have a
Yeah.
therapist that I see every month. And the more I started to open up, and people were like, wow, you're just so relatable, because what you're saying is you're only together because you've used these little tools. So to give you an example, on my team, when I used to manage a team before this role, I had a lot of parents that joined my team because I used to offer a lot of flexible working, whereas other
Mm,
teams didn't. So a lot of the parents were like, we want to work with you because you offer flexible working. So what I built was, I built a team where they were given, for example, I was given a team with the lowest people survey score. You know, how happy are your people? I was given a team which was the lowest, and after a few years, they became the highest, happiest team, for example. And then
mm,
people would approach me and say, "What do you do?" And I said, you know, when I look back at it, I said, I'm just connecting with them. I'm just saying, do you know your people? So I managed 9 people. Each of their needs was very different. You know, one was a carer, one was a parent, one loved to go running, you know, one loved, you know, they all had very different passions outside of work. So
yeah,
the big thing I sort of say to people is connecting with them and building that trust. So they're comfortable saying, you know, I'm a single parent, I'm struggling today, or I've got carers responsibilities, I need to leave, or can I just log off?
yeah,
So I think for me, well-being was knowing your people first, because every person's well-being needs is so different. You know, I have good days and I have bad days, and I want to
mm,
be open with my team about, like, God, I'm really stressed out. So what I started to build was, I'd go in the morning. I did try and fit in breath work and yoga in the mornings, but I'm not a morning
mm,
person. It was stressful with the kids. So I would drop the kids off and I would literally go into the office, and there was a first aid room around the corner of near the coffee shop. So I would
mm,
go into the first aid room before I started work, and I would do some breath work, which is like 6 minutes
mm.
of breathing. And then people would say to me, "We keep seeing you come out of this room. What are you doing?" And I said,
Yeah,
"Oh, I just do some breathing techniques." And they were like, "Oh, can I join you?" And I was like, "Absolutely." So they all knew that Resham does some breathing before she starts. So people would then text me saying, "I'm having a really stressful journey. Can I join you for your breath work?" So, it just sort of
mm,
became like, it was just like a small baby steps. People started to join me. 1 minute I'd have 2 people in the first aid room with me, then I'd have 6 people. So people just knew where I was, what I was doing. So I'd start off with breath work, and I say to my team, before you even open your laptop, you need to be, is your glass full?
mm,
It's very, is your glass full today? Because if it's not, then you're not going to be able to perform at work. If you're a parent,
yeah,
you're not going to be able to perform at home. So I think my team just really enjoyed having a leader who just cared about their well-being. So
yeah,
if I knew that they were running late, I'm like, take your time. Have you had breakfast? Go and have breakfast, and then switch your laptop on. So I just came from a human element rather than a performance element. I just feel like if you are happy and healthy, you'll perform.
yeah,
So just understanding how happy and healthy your team are on the day, because it changes day by day, you know. So just really creating an environment where people are open and honest to tell me that they are struggling, or some of the team were from Muslim backgrounds. They needed flexible working, the times and days that they started and finished, and because I gave them the autonomy and the trust, they give back. So when people sort of say, like, I can't see my team in the office, or they're not online at this time, they're still delivering. The output is still the same, or if not better. So why are we, not caring about their well-being first?
yeah. It's such a shame that, I think only recently, and because of people like yourself that are really pushing and driving that agenda as a priority in the workplace and the environment, that we're only cottoning on to this now. And I can only imagine, how many people have suffered as a result that this is not prioritized, and what it is that people go through more often than not as a result of environments that don't allow for, like you said, the trust environment, the room for people to actually feel seen as human beings rather than just producers of an end goal. I would love to hear what has been some of kind of the reception of those that you've mentored along the journey.
Oh, the people I mentor are just like, they make my day.
Yeah,
I used to come from a place of like, I want to change the culture, I want to change the leadership, I want to just start top down. And
yeah,
then I changed, and I used to get really frustrated because it wasn't happening fast enough. It's not, I don't see change quick enough.
mm,
So then I changed my mindset to, if I can make an impact to one person each day, I've done a good job. That
yeah,
I love this quote, which I say all the time, that people see in my talks. It's, Martin Luther King Jr., don't think of the
mm,
whole staircase, just take the first step. So me, like you say, it's about each day is a step. If I can make a difference to someone's day, it's like the butterfly effect. They'll also learn that and teach that to somebody else. So
Yeah.
the people I mentor, I feel like I'm the proud mum, because they're like, they've done something, or they'll message me and they'll say, Resh, you did this talk and it's inspired me to go for this job. Or you've changed my mindset, or, you've changed my life. And I get really touched, like, wow, that's a big difference to making someone's day. And it's something that it's a tool they'll always have with them. It's a gift I can give somebody, is my privilege of experience, or if I can open a door for somebody, I can connect them with somebody. So the people I mentor are amazing. And they're all in sort of their 20s, they're in their early year careers, they're the people I mentor, they're different backgrounds. But one thing I do love about them is that, when you're in rooms with, senior people, whether it's an age thing or just they've been somewhere a long time, and they will say like, oh, the younger generation, or, that they sort of put a negative label on the younger generation. I really go in and I challenge that, and I say, no way. The people I mentor are driven, they are talented, they work hard. Like, we cannot put a label on them.
So what has been some of the reception that you've received from, these people that you've just had the privilege to mentor?
The reception has been amazing. It's actually something that really makes my day. At the end of each day, I even tell my kids, like, I've had such a good day. I've had this amazing feedback from somebody. So I was, if you spoke to me last year, I had a very different mindset. My good day was trying to change the world, change the culture, change everything. And I was getting really frustrated because I didn't see change fast enough, And then I changed my mindset to actually, I love this quote by Martin Luther King. He says, Martin Luther King Jr., don't think of the whole staircase, just take the first step. So I started to look at change and culture and people as baby steps. So instead of trying to change the top and the culture and everything, and it wasn't happening fast enough, I focused on making a small difference each day. So the people I mentor, they send me such lovely messages, or they tell me lovely feedback, like, the words you gave me have inspired me to go for the next job, or the words you've said to me have really changed my life, that, the words you've said to me have really, I feel valued, and I think for me, that is my good day. My success is that ripple effect I can have on somebody, where I can say something to them, and I know, in time they will mentor someone else and say, you know what, someone told me this, and that nugget of information, that gift you can give someone is so powerful. And I think mentoring for me is my way of giving back something that I'm so passionate about. And I think it's the biggest gift you can give someone actually in their career, is mentoring.
Yeah, and I fully agree with that, because what you're depositing is something that is so longer lasting than something that's material, that will have some form of expiration. And especially when that gift almost has, I'd like to say, almost an eternal value, because they're able to impart that to another generation, who therefore can take that on and impart that to their next generation. So what you're doing is, like you said, it's actually invaluable. There's no value to be placed on something like that that has such a long-standing and deeply impacting and profound effect.
Oh,
So
thank you.
on coming to kind of our final questions for today, and I just want to thank you so much for sharing what you've done. Your heart behind what you do is so encouraging and inspiring, and we need more like you with regards to how you see people within very high pressured environments. You've spoken that your contact spaces have been very much in senior leadership positions, and in very big organizations where I can imagine that stress levels are high, and yet you're still finding ways to rally people and encourage them to move forward in a way that they haven't had to lose their soul. So I want to ask you, in your opinion, what do you feel needs to be kind of improved in general in the workplace, specifically for D&I initiatives, and as well as for wellbeing, in the future kind of way in which we culture work?
Okay. I think right now everyone is talking the talk, but they now need to walk the walk.
Yeah.
There's a lot of talking at tables, and we keep saying, but we need to move the dial, like say, bit by bit, step by step. And I have not met anyone that hasn't said, I don't agree with well-being or D&I. They all agree, and they understand the reason why it all works, but I don't see enough action. So there's lots of talking, lots of nodding, lots of agreeing. Yeah, love this. And I think it needs to be clear that it's everybody's job. It's not like HR's job or recruitment's job or my job because I'm from a D&I background. It's everybody's job, and it makes sense for everybody in every team. So, it's great that, there's a spotlight on lots of people, like, Black History Month or South Asian, all this stuff. But I just feel like they need to now put put action to their words. Because, if you look from a year from now, like what has changed, it's still small, but I think, I want people like to genuinely mean what they say. It's okay to say, I'm not great with people, but I care about it, but I'm going to hire someone like Resham, for example. There's lots of people like me that can do what I do, but recognizing everyone's strengths and everyone's weaknesses. But people have to come from a mindset of people first, because it's your people that drive the revenue. It's the people that drive performance. It's the people that hit your targets and your goals. And if you don't care about people first, that's when they walk and they don't feel valued, and they will go somewhere else where they are valued. I'm very fortunate that I was valued everywhere I went, but there are some people that don't have the same experience as myself, which is why I want to put a spotlight on. As much as there's a lot of work that needs to be done, there's still some really great, wow moments that we should celebrate. Like there's lots of work with sort of women in the workplace, and there's still not enough, ethnic diversity, but we'll get there. And what we just need is whoever has a seat at the table, bring everyone up the ladder with you, give someone else a seat at the table. And that's something I do with my mentoring, is making sure I can give my seat to somebody, even if I can't take that seat, giving it to somebody like me. So yeah, to summarize, I'd say, stop talking the talk. Now let's just walk the walk. And they need to know their people, and they need to connect. It's not enough just to hire someone. I've joined a media-wide industry called MEFA, MEFA. They stand for Media for All. And they are basically, my mentor and my sponsor said to me, Resh, you do so much mentoring within Sky. Why don't you spread your wings and do it within the industry? So this MEFA organization is about mentoring people across the industry, not just companies. And they say the biggest way we can change is to plant those seeds, like you said. The gift we're giving is so powerful. So getting more allies on board, so this is now, I've joined up with so many great companies that can help support the work I do and spread the knowledge. And also we can learn from each other, so we need to stop looking at diversity as something of people. It's like diversity of thought, diversity of experience. If the same people have been in the company for 20 years, we're not really going to change. We need to bring someone from different experiences to the table. So diversity of thought is something they also need to look at, rather than ethnic diversity, gender diversity. They need to look at diversity of thought and diversity of experience.
It really is, as you say, and I love what you said there. Thank you so much for sharing that. That is literal gems in the space of 30 seconds of an answer. But the way that you've described it, I think in order for us to really have the impact that we really desire, is this mindset has to be altered about the human value holistically. It's not going to be about a number in terms of, like you said, shifting that dial a little bit. What am I doing with regards to my part, and also how much it actually involves everybody? There is allyship, but there is also personal responsibility. There is a sense that I am responsible to give back. I am someone, and the fact that you said something today, which I think is quite counterculture with what we understand to be, stereotypically corporate or business world as dog eat dog, is, am I ready to give my seat up for someone else? Am I ready also even to be willing to build a new table that enables others to take a seat, to be heard? And I think what you say, that if we were to really kind of navigate every single one of our personal steps with that mindset involved, I think we will see the shift and the change that we so desire. Resham, I want to thank you so much for being with us at Cohesia Connect and our connecting conversations today. You've just dropped some incredibly inspiring things, and I cannot wait for our listeners to kind of hear more from you. So more information will be given hopefully in our in the details below, to find out more about Resham and her amazing podcast, Now I Know, which is incredible. So I can't recommend that more. Resham, thank you so much for being with us today. We really appreciate you. Please keep shining and doing what you're doing.